I never thought a simple missing person report could turn into something that would haunt me for the rest of my career. It started on a cold, gray morning when I got the call. The voice on the other end was shaky, almost whispering, telling me that a young woman had disappeared somewhere in the dense woods outside our small town. I was still half asleep, sipping my coffee, thinking this would be just another routine search. But as soon as I hung up the phone, a sinking feeling settled in my stomach. There was something about the way she spoke, the urgency hidden in her calm words, that told me this was not going to be ordinary. I grabbed my jacket and badge, trying to shake off the unease that was already creeping up my spine. The town had always been quiet, the kind of place where everyone knew each other and a missing person was rare. Usually, someone would wander off and be found a few hours later, maybe stuck in mud or lost in the trails. But this time something didn't sit right. Her name was Emily, a college student who had grown up in the area. Everyone I spoke to said she was responsible, careful, and hardly the type to wander off without telling anyone. The woods themselves had a reputation. Not the kind that gets written about in newspapers, but whispered warnings between locals. Stories of people getting lost, strange noises at night, glimpses of shadows where there shouldn't be any. I'd walked those trails plenty of times, chasing criminals or helping lost hikers, but today it felt different. The fog clung low to the ground, weaving between the trees like it was alive, hiding things that I wasn't ready to see. When I arrived at the edge of the forest, Emily's parents were there, faces pale and tired. Her mother clutched a photograph of her daughter, and her father's hands trembled as he tried to keep his composure. I introduced myself and assured them we would do everything we could to find her. But inside, I knew words were useless here. I had to see for myself, to follow whatever trail remained in these woods, even if it led me somewhere I wasn't prepared to go. The first thing I noticed was how silent it was. No birds, no wind rustling the leaves, just an eerie stillness that pressed down on me. I started walking along the path Emily had been seen last, my boots crunching on the fallen leaves. Every step felt heavier than the last, as if the forest itself was warning me to turn back. The trees loomed high, their branches twisting together like fingers, blocking out the weak morning light. I called out her name, my voice echoing strangely, and the silence answered me back. I wasn't alone in the woods, though I couldn't see anyone. Small movements caught my eye, a flicker of something behind a tree, the snap of a branch, but every time I turned there was nothing there. I tried to tell myself it was my imagination, nerves running wild because of the gravity of the situation. But deep down, I knew this place had secrets and Emily might have stumbled right into one of them. As I moved deeper, I found signs that someone had been here before me. Footprints in the mud, a backpack lying abandoned, its contents scattered. I crouched down to examine them. The footprints were fresh but didn't make sense. They zigzagged, sometimes small, sometimes larger, almost like whoever left them was unsure of where to go. The backpack had Emily's ID and a notebook. I picked it up carefully, flipping through the pages. Her handwriting was neat, notes about her college classes, daily life, nothing to suggest she was worried or scared. But one page was smudged, as if someone had wiped something away, and I couldn't make out what she had written. That small detail sent a chill down my spine. I radioed for backup, asking for more units to come and help. The dispatcher's voice was calm, almost too calm, and I wondered if they could hear the tension in my voice. My gut told me this wasn't going to be a simple missing person case. There was something about the way the forest swallowed sound, the way the light seemed wrong, that made me feel like we were being watched. Hours passed. We scoured the area, calling her name, following trails, checking the nearby streams and thickets. Every so often I thought I saw her, just for a second, a flash of blonde hair between the trees, but when I ran toward it there was nothing. The deeper we went, the stranger it became. I found a circle of stones, small, arranged carefully, almost like a marker. Something about it felt wrong, unnatural, like it was meant to be seen but not approached. I took a photo trying to stay calm, but my hands shook. By late afternoon, the sun was slipping behind the trees, casting long, dark shadows that made the forest seem even more endless. My team and I decided to set up a temporary base near the edge, but I couldn't shake the feeling that moving too far away from the main path was dangerous. I stayed behind, walking slowly, eyes scanning the surroundings, ears straining for any sound. That's when I heard it, a low hum, almost a whisper, coming from deeper in the woods. My heart raced. I called out again, "Emily," but only the whisper replied, echoing, taunting. I wanted to believe it was the wind, the way it rustled through the leaves, but something about the tone made my stomach knot. It wasn't just a sound, it was deliberate. And then I saw it. A shadow, darker than the rest of the forest, moving against the direction of the wind. I froze, barely breathing, watching as it slipped behind a thick clump of trees. I took a step forward, then another, but my gut told me to stop. Whoever, or whatever, was there, it wasn't just hiding. It was waiting. By the time the last rays of sun disappeared, the forest had transformed. The fog grew thicker, curling around the trunks like fingers, and the path I had walked earlier seemed to vanish. My flashlight cut through the darkness, but only a few feet ahead. Every sound seemed amplified, the rustle of leaves, the crack of a twig, even my own heartbeat. And then I heard it again, the whisper, this time closer, almost right behind me. I spun around, expecting to see Emily, but there was nothing. Just the shadows, twisting and moving in ways that didn't make sense. My radio crackled, breaking the silence, and the dispatcher's voice came through, calling for a status update. I hesitated. How could I explain what I was feeling? How could I tell them that the forest didn't feel real anymore, that something was out there, something that wasn't human? I took a deep breath and whispered to myself, I have to find her. But even as I said it, I knew that the deeper I went, the further I was from safety. The woods were alive, and they weren't letting anyone leave easily. Emily was here somewhere, and I could feel it. The question was, would I find her before it was too late, or would I become just another name whispered about in this forest? And that's when I saw it, a faint glow barely visible through the thick fog, coming from a place I had no business going. Something inside me pulled me forward, against every instinct screaming to turn back. I grabbed my flashlight tighter, my heart pounding in my chest, and took the first step into the darkness. Whatever was waiting in the woods, I was about to find it. The glow flickered ahead, faint but steady, like a candle fighting against the fog. Every step I took toward it felt heavier, as if the forest itself was trying to slow me down. Twigs snapped under my boots, but the sound felt muted, swallowed by the thick air. I kept calling out Emily's name, though my voice sounded small and fragile against the towering trees. There was no answer, only that strange humming whisper that had been following me since the afternoon. The closer I got, the more I noticed details that didn't make sense. The ground was littered with leaves, but some looked burned at the edges as if fire had passed over them recently. The air smelled faintly metallic, sharp and bitter, and my flashlight beam caught glimpses of strange markings on the trees, scratches, deep and deliberate, like claws had carved them. My stomach twisted, but I forced myself to move forward. I couldn't stop now. Then I saw it. Not Emily, not yet, but a figure. At first I thought it was her, but the shape was taller than any person I had ever seen, and it moved in a way that felt wrong. Its limbs twisted, bending in unnatural angles, and the glow I had been following seemed to radiate from it. I froze, every instinct screaming at me to run, but I couldn't. I needed to know if this was connected to Emily, if she was still alive. I raised my flashlight and called her name again. The figure tilted its head like it was listening and then vanished. Just like that, as if it had never been there. I blinked, heart pounding, convinced I had imagined it. But then I saw the trail, footprints that glowed faintly in the fog, leading deeper into the forest toward darkness that seemed almost unnatural. I swallowed my fear and followed them, the whisper growing louder, wrapping around my mind like a cold hand. Minutes, or maybe hours, passed. Time felt distorted. The path I had been following seemed to fold in on itself, trees appearing where there had been none, shadows twisting into shapes that looked eerily human. I stumbled over roots, my flashlight shaking in my hand, but I couldn't stop. Somewhere ahead, I knew Emily was waiting, or at least whatever had taken her. And then I heard it clearly, a voice. Her voice. Help me. It was weak, terrified, and it echoed strangely, bouncing between the trees. I sprinted toward it, calling her name, tears blurring my vision. But when I reached the spot where the sound had come from, there was nothing. Only the fog, thick and suffocating, swirling around me. My heart sank and a cold dread settled in my chest. I stopped and listened. The forest was silent again, but the glow remained. I felt drawn to it like it was a thread pulling me through a maze I didn't understand. As I moved closer, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The ground was covered with footprints, but not just any footprints. They weren't all human. Some were huge, clawed, and deep, sinking into the soil in a way that suggested immense weight. Others were smaller, human-sized, but they moved in patterns that made no sense. Zigzags, circles, even backward steps. Whoever, or whatever, was here, they had been playing with their prey. I realized then that I wasn't just looking for Emily. I was walking into a trap, and the forest knew it. My radio crackled again, a voice asking for a status update. I hesitated. Could I even explain this? Could anyone believe the things I was seeing? I forced myself to speak, keeping my voice calm, careful not to show the panic rising in my chest. Still searching, heading deeper into the woods. No sign yet, I said, praying it wouldn't betray my fear. I moved on, following the faint glow, and finally I reached a clearing. The fog thinned here and the air was warmer, almost suffocating. In the center of the clearing I saw Emily, or at least something that looked like her. She was kneeling on the ground, her head bowed, hands gripping the earth as if she was trying to hold herself in place. The glow surrounded her, pulsing like a heartbeat, and I felt a strange vibration in my chest, as if the forest itself was alive and aware of me. I ran to her, calling her name, but as I got closer, a shadow moved between us. I froze. It was the same figure I had seen before, tall, unnatural, its face hidden, limbs bending in impossible angles. It didn't speak. It didn't move like a human. It just stood there watching, and I realized with horror that it wasn't going to let me take her easily. I raised my flashlight, shining it directly at the figure. For a moment I thought I saw Emily flinch, but then the figure shifted, almost melting into the fog. The glow around her flickered and dimmed. I knew I had seconds to act before she disappeared entirely. My mind raced, but my training kicked in. I grabbed her arm, pulling, shouting, trying to break whatever hold the forest, or whatever lived here, had on her. Her eyes met mine, wide and terrified, and for the first time she spoke clearly. "It's not human. It's watching us. Don't let it." Her voice broke off, swallowed by a sound that came from everywhere at once. A low, vibrating hum, like the forest itself was screaming, filled my ears. The ground trembled beneath my boots and I stumbled, barely holding on to her. And then, just as suddenly as it started, the hum stopped. The fog shifted, revealing the clearing empty. Emily was gone. I was alone. My flashlight shook in my hand, my heart hammering. I ran to the spot where she had been, calling her name, searching the trees, but there was nothing. Only footprints, human and not human, leading further into the darkness, disappearing into shadows I couldn't see beyond. I sank to my knees, gasping for air. The forest was silent again, but I knew it wasn't over. Whatever had taken her, whatever I had seen, it was still here. Watching. Waiting. And I had no idea if Emily was alive, or if I would ever see her again. All I knew was that I couldn't stop. I had to follow. I had to find her. And I had to survive. I knew I couldn't stop. I couldn't leave. The forest had secrets, and Emily's life depended on uncovering them. But a part of me, deep down, wondered if finding her might be more dangerous than I could imagine. Something was here, something ancient, something that didn't belong in our world. And as I sat in the damp clearing, staring into the fog, I realized that the rest of the night would test everything I thought I knew about fear, survival, and the line between human and something else. I stood, gripping my flashlight, my breath forming small clouds in the cold air. The glow ahead pulsed again, almost beckoning me forward. My heart raced, and I knew that whatever waited, I had no choice but to follow it. Emily's voice, faint but real in my memory, kept me moving. Every step I took deeper into the forest carried me closer to her, and closer to the unknown. And with that thought, I took the first step into the darkness, knowing that the night ahead was only going to get stranger, more dangerous, and more terrifying. The deeper I went, the forest seemed to shift around me. Every tree I passed felt like it had a purpose, like it was watching me, judging me, deciding if I was worthy of continuing. My flashlight flickered more than once, the beam trembling in my hand, and I kept hearing whispers that weren't there. Sometimes they sounded like Emily, other times they were distorted, almost mocking me. I shook my head, trying to focus, but the unease clung to my bones like ice. As I followed the glowing trail, I noticed other signs that Emily had been struggling. Broken branches, footprints that looked like she had tried to run in a circle, and a faint scrape along a tree trunk, as if someone had clawed at it while trying to escape. The thought of her panicked, desperate, frightened, made my chest tighten. I wanted to call out again, but my voice caught in my throat. The forest wasn't silent anymore. It hummed with tension, almost responding to the sounds I made. Every shout or whisper seemed to ripple through the fog, as if some unseen presence was listening. I remembered something my partner had said once long ago about how people report strange sightings in these woods, about missing hikers and hunters, about noises that sound like voices but vanish when you approach. He had laughed it off, joking that the forest was just eerie at night. But now I couldn't laugh. I couldn't dismiss what I was seeing. Something was alive in these woods, something older and smarter than we imagined, and it didn't operate like humans. I started thinking about Emily herself. She wasn't just a random victim. She had grown up in this area. She knew the woods better than most, at least the trails people actually used. That meant whatever had taken her wasn't relying on her ignorance, It was actively outsmarting her, keeping her trapped. That thought chilled me more than anything else. This wasn't a simple case of getting lost. This was something deliberate. As I moved forward, I stumbled upon a small creek. The water ran dark, sluggish, almost stagnant. I bent down to look, hoping for a clue, a footprint, a piece of clothing, but the surface was unbroken, reflecting the trees like a black mirror. I noticed something odd. The footprints leading to the creek didn't continue on the other side. They ended abruptly. It was as if Emily had vanished mid-step. My stomach lurched. I knew what I had seen before, traces of her, but this was something different. Something unnatural. I crouched by the water, studying the bank. Then I heard it, a faint laugh, soft and high-pitched, carrying over the creek. It was her voice, or at least it sounded like her, but there was something wrong with it. Distorted. Almost musical but sinister. My heart raced as I called out, "Emily, where are you?" The laugh stopped. The silence that followed was worse, thick and heavy, like the forest itself was holding its breath. I backed away from the creek, my flashlight scanning the trees. That's when I noticed them eyes. Small, reflective points of light, peeking from the shadows, not like human eyes, but like something observing me from every angle. I couldn't see bodies, only the glint of awareness, and it made the hairs on my arms stand up. I realized that whatever I was dealing with, I wasn't alone, and that Emily wasn't the only one being watched. I tried to shake off the fear, telling myself I was a trained officer. I had handled dangerous situations before. But this was different. The rules I relied on didn't apply here. I had no way of knowing what could hurt me, or worse, what could take me if I made the wrong move. Every step felt like it had to be calculated, every decision a potential risk. The forest was a predator and I was prey in its game. My thoughts drifted to the missing person reports from years past, cases that had gone cold. I remembered a few stories of families who had come to these woods to search for loved ones, only to find strange markers, symbols, or signs that their family member had passed through, but never found them. Some even claimed to hear voices calling them deeper into the woods. Those stories had always seemed exaggerated, but now I understood. Whoever, or whatever, was here played with fear, led people on, studied them. Emily's disappearance wasn't random. It was intentional. I paused as I heard a snapping branch ahead. My flashlight flicked toward the sound. There, just for a second, I saw movement, a figure crouched low, watching, almost blending with the darkness. My pulse surged. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. I had to move closer, had to know if it was Emily, had to see if she was still alive. The figure shifted, disappearing behind a tree, leaving only a faint trail of footprints in the mud. I followed. My boots sank into soft ground as I pushed forward, flashlight beam cutting through thick fog. The trail led me to a narrow clearing, almost like a natural corridor through the forest. Here the air felt different, denser, heavier. I could see faint patterns in the dirt, small circles and lines, almost ritualistic. I crouched to examine them, trying to make sense. Were they signs? Warnings? Or traps? I didn't know, but every instinct screamed that I was closer to understanding the forest's secret. I thought about Emily again, picturing her alone, terrified, trying to make sense of what was happening. I imagined her running, hiding, calling for help, hoping someone would find her. The thought drove me forward, fueled a determination I couldn't ignore. But the forest was changing again. Shadows deepened, twisting unnaturally. The fog thickened, swallowing the beam of my flashlight, and whispers returned, coming from multiple directions at once. I could feel it in my chest, an electric, pulsing tension that made every nerve in my body scream. I realized I wasn't just tracking Emily. I was following a path laid out for me, one that I didn't fully understand. The forest was testing me, forcing me to confront fear, doubt, and the unknown. And as I moved deeper, I started to notice something else. Small hints of another presence, one that wasn't the tall figure I had seen before. A sense that I was not only being watched but guided, manipulated. Then I saw it, something half hidden behind the trees. Not Emily, but something that looked almost human, kneeling in the dirt, its features obscured. I froze, unsure if it was a threat or a clue. The whispering increased, surrounding me, pressing into my mind. My flashlight flickered wildly and I had to fight the urge to drop it and run. The forest seemed alive in a way I couldn't explain. Every step I took echoed unnaturally, every rustle of leaves felt deliberate, like the trees themselves were watching, waiting. My flashlight flickered again and for a moment, I was blinded by darkness. When the light returned, I saw footprints again, some human, some not. They led deeper into the twisted trees, toward a part of the woods I had never seen before, where shadows seemed to stretch endlessly and the fog thickened until it was almost solid. I called out Emily's name, my voice cracking, but only the echo returned. The whispering was louder now, circling around me, sometimes rising in tone, sometimes almost like laughter. My chest tightened, and I realized I had been holding my breath without knowing it. Every instinct screamed that I was close, but also that I was in danger. The trail wasn't random. Whoever, or whatever, was here wanted me to follow it, wanted me to walk right into its domain. I stumbled over roots and rocks, my flashlight slipping in my sweaty hands. Then I heard it again, a soft, fragile voice trembling, calling my name. Off. To help. It was faint, barely audible, but unmistakable. Emily. Relief and terror hit me at the same time. I ran, following the sound, my ears straining to pick out every syllable. But the voice led me to a clearing and my heart sank. She wasn't there. Only the fog, swirling thick and suffocating, and the glow ahead, pulsing faintly. I took cautious steps forward. The ground here was strange, soft in some places, uneven in others, almost like the forest itself was shifting beneath me. The glow grew stronger, illuminating shapes that didn't belong, twisted branches, strange markings, small stones arranged in patterns that felt deliberate, ritualistic. I crouched to examine them, my pulse racing. Whoever had done this, whoever, or whatever, was controlling this place had been here a long time, and it wasn't just targeting Emily. I was part of it now too. Then I saw movement in the fog. Shadows flickered at the edge of my vision, tall and angular, impossible to fully see. I swung my flashlight, catching glimpses of shapes that disappeared as soon as I focused on them. My mind raced. Emily could be anywhere, trapped, scared, maybe even watching me, unable to move. The thought of her alone in this terrifying place sent a wave of adrenaline through me. I had to find her before it was too late. As I pressed forward, I realized the forest was getting darker, thicker, almost as if it was swallowing the weak light of my flashlight. Every step made a low, vibrating hum resonate through the air. My heartbeat echoed it, my pulse rising, fear and urgency mixing into a strange, focused determination. I knew I was nearing something that had pulled Emily in, something that had been waiting for me. I remembered the stories I had heard, cases that had gone cold, people disappearing without a trace, odd markings in the woods, voices in the fog. They weren't just stories. They were warnings. And now I was experiencing it firsthand. My hands trembled and I gripped my flashlight tighter. The whispering intensified, coming from every direction at once, making it impossible to tell where it originated. My ears rang, my vision blurred. I stumbled but kept moving, driven by the faint memory of her voice calling out to me. The trail led me to a narrow passage between two massive trees. The fog was thick here, almost tangible, curling around my legs as I stepped forward. I could hear Emily again, closer this time, weak but real. She was ahead. Relief surged, but fear surged faster. The shadows seemed to move with me, slinking around the edges of my vision, twisting and stretching. I realized that if I made one wrong move I could lose her, or worse. Suddenly the ground beneath me shifted. I nearly fell, my flashlight skidding across the soil. The beam landed on a cluster of footprints, human-sized, small, hurried, but also another set, larger, deeper, with claw-like edges. My stomach sank. Whatever had taken her wasn't human. I shivered, the hairs on my arms standing up. I had followed the trail this far, but now I understood the danger wasn't just about getting lost. It was about surviving. I pressed on, my focus narrowing to one thing: finding Emily. The whispering had changed, rhythmic now, almost chanting, surrounding me from every side. I could hear her voice woven into it, faint, begging, urgent. Please, help me. My heart raced. The glow was brighter now, directly ahead. I reached the center of the fog and I froze. There, standing, or hovering, was a figure. Taller than any human, limbs bending in ways that shouldn't be possible, its outline blurred in the fog. The glow seemed to radiate from it, pulsing in time with the hum that vibrated through the clearing. I could feel the air thickening, pressing against my chest, making it hard to breathe. My flashlight shook in my hands, my pulse pounding in my ears. I wanted to call out, but my voice caught, swallowed by the oppressive weight of the forest. Then I saw her, Emily. She was kneeling just beyond the figure, her body trembling, hands reaching toward me. Relief hit, but fear tore through me instantly. The figure shifted slightly, and the fog seemed to respond, moving like waves in a storm. I realized that if I moved too quickly, too aggressively, I might provoke it. But I couldn't just leave her here. Not now. The shadows around the clearing deepened. The whispering rose into a roar, voices overlapping, echoing, calling out in tones that made my head spin. My chest tightened, every nerve on fire. I could feel the figure's presence, immense and intelligent, like it was aware of me, measuring me, testing me. The air was alive with tension, charged with something ancient, something I couldn't name. I took a careful step forward, then another, trying to keep my hands steady. Emily's voice broke through the chaos, louder now, almost guiding me. She was close, but so was danger. The figure shifted again, and I realized with a cold certainty, it wasn't going to let me reach her easily. Everything I had seen, every mark, every whisper, every unnatural movement had led me here. The climax was coming, and I was standing at the edge of it, knowing that one wrong step could change everything. I gritted my teeth and whispered, "Emily, I've got you." The fog seemed to pulse in response, as if the forest itself heard me. The glow ahead brightened, almost blinding, and I could feel the ground vibrate beneath my feet. My heart hammered in my chest. The shadows moved closer. The whispers became a chorus, rising to a deafening crescendo. I was at the center of it now, caught between the figure and the girl I had to save. And then everything went still. For a moment, the forest held its breath. The glow, the whispers, the shadows, they paused, waiting. I could feel Emily's fear, my own fear, and the presence of something far older and smarter than me pressing in from every direction. I knew the climax of this nightmare was right in front of me. What happened next could change everything, but I had no idea if I was ready. The silence that had fallen over the clearing didn't feel like relief. It felt like a trap. Every instinct in my body screamed danger, and yet I couldn't move. Emily was there, just a few feet away, but the figure between us seemed to grow taller, more defined, as if feeding off the fear in the air. My pulse thundered in my ears, my hands gripped the flashlight like it was the only thing keeping me tethered to reality. Then, without warning, the figure shifted again. This time it wasn't just movement. Its form split, fracturing into multiple shapes that hovered in the fog, surrounding Emily in a perfect, terrifying circle. I stumbled back, my breath coming fast and shallow. I tried to call her name, but the words barely made it past my throat. That's when I realized something that made my stomach drop. Some of the shapes weren't shadows, they were Emily's own form. Her face, her body, twisted and mirrored, trapped in the fog like reflections that shouldn't exist. Each duplicate whispered, cried, or screamed softly, each voice merging with the humming chorus of the forest. My mind spun. It was impossible. How could she be in more than one place at once? Then the whispers shifted. They weren't just Emily's, they were calling my name too, weaving between fear and warning, pulling me toward different directions at the same time. I tried to focus, tried to find the real Emily, but every step I took, the forest seemed to stretch further, the fog thickening like a living wall. My flashlight flickered violently, and I could feel the ground under me shifting. Something else was here, hiding in plain sight, something I hadn't noticed before. A low, rumbling sound emerged from the shadows. It wasn't the forest, it wasn't the wind. It was deliberate, slow, almost like a heartbeat, or the dragging of something immense. I glanced at the glowing figures and my stomach sank. They weren't just illusions. Whatever, or whoever, was here had been using the fog to manipulate perception, to distort reality itself. I realized with horror that the missing people I had heard about, the hunters, the children, the stories whispered in town, they hadn't vanished naturally. This place had claimed them, twisted them, just as it was trying to do to Emily. I stepped forward cautiously, trying to separate the real Emily from the illusions. The closer I got, the more distorted the images became. One figure reached out a hand and my mind instinctively flinched. But then I saw it, the real Emily, her eyes wide with terror, struggling to move but still holding herself upright. Relief and panic collided in my chest. She was here, alive, but the stakes had just changed. The forest wasn't just hiding her, it was testing me, taunting me, and it had powers I couldn't explain. I reached toward her, my voice steady but tense. Emily grabbed my hand. Now. For a moment nothing happened. Then the ground trembled beneath us, the fog swirling violently, and one of the illusionary Emilys stepped forward. Only it wasn't her. Its eyes glowed faintly, empty and unhuman, and its mouth stretched in a way no human could replicate. It hissed, a sound that cut through the forest and vibrated in my chest. My flashlight slipped from my hands as I stumbled backward, adrenaline surging. The real Emily screamed. I realized then that the figure wasn't the only threat. The forest itself had changed, shifting like it was alive, rearranging paths, moving branches, creating barriers I hadn't noticed. Every instinct I had was useless here. Training didn't prepare me for this. The glow pulsed again, brighter now, almost hypnotic, and the whispers intensified. They weren't just calling for me, they were shaping me, trying to manipulate my mind. Every step I wanted to take toward Emily was countered by fear and confusion I couldn't fully control. I forced myself to breathe, focus, one step at a time. I reminded myself that the real Emily was right there, only a few feet away, and that if I hesitated, the forest would claim her, and me. But then something else hit me, a detail I had missed until that moment. The illusions weren't random. They weren't chaotic. They were guiding me subtly toward something deeper in the forest, a place I hadn't seen before. I realized with a jolt that the figure, the fog, the whispers, they weren't just trapping us. They were leading us somewhere. And whatever was waiting there was likely the source of all this terror. My heart raced as I made a decision. I couldn't just react anymore. I had to follow, even if it meant walking into the unknown. I grabbed Emily's hand, steadying her as best I could. Her skin was cold and she trembled, but her grip was firm. "We have to go. Trust me," I whispered. Her eyes were wide, full of fear, but she nodded. I could feel her fear and determination intertwining with mine, giving me a strange sense of clarity amid the chaos. We moved forward, stepping carefully between the shifting shapes and shadows. Every sound, every whisper seemed to echo louder, and I knew we weren't alone. The forest pulsed around us, almost like it was aware of our intentions, responding to every heartbeat, every breath. I kept glancing back, half expecting the illusions to strike to trap us, but so far they stayed at the edges, circling, observing, testing. Then, without warning, the ground gave way beneath me. I stumbled, catching myself on a twisted root, and my flashlight fell again. In the brief moment of darkness, I saw it. Something massive, moving just beyond the fog, a shadow larger than any human, stretching impossibly tall. It let out a low, resonant sound, almost like a growl, almost like a voice. My stomach lurched. This wasn't just a creature, it was the source. The center of all the fear, all the whispers, all the missing people. Emily screamed, and I spun toward her, catching her just as the shadows seemed to shift closer. The glow pulsed brighter, illuminating a path deeper into the forest. I realized with a sinking certainty that we were being drawn into the heart of it. Whatever had taken her, whatever had been watching, was waiting. And it knew we were coming. I took a deep breath, gripping Emily's hand tighter, and stepped onto the glowing path. The whispers swirled louder, voices overlapping, echoing from everywhere and nowhere. Every instinct screamed to turn back, but I couldn't. The forest had led us here. The figure, the fog, the shadows, they were all pieces of a puzzle I didn't understand yet. And the next step, I knew, would push us into the most dangerous moment of this night. The air grew colder, heavier. My flashlight beam barely penetrated the fog. Shapes moved at the edges of my vision, twisting, crawling, watching. Emily clung to me, and I whispered her name, telling her it would be okay, even as the forest screamed in ways no human voice could imitate. The path ahead narrowed, and I realized we were walking into the unknown, into a part of these woods that had no trails, no light, and no mercy. And as we stepped forward, the glow pulsed one last time before fading into darkness. The forest waited. And so did whatever had been pulling Emily into its depths. The glowing path ended abruptly in a wide clearing. The fog hung heavy, swirling like smoke caught in a frozen moment. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. Emily was still clinging to me, trembling, her eyes wide with terror. And in the center of the clearing stood the figure, the one that had haunted the forest, the one that had been leading us through shadows and illusions all night. It was taller than I remembered, its form now clear but no less unnatural. Limbs bent in impossible angles, glowing faintly where the fog touched it, eyes empty but intelligent, as if it could see straight into our souls. I tightened my grip on Emily's hand. "We have to face it. Together," I whispered, though my voice wavered. The figure didn't move immediately. It watched us patiently, almost judging us. Then the ground beneath it rippled, like a wave passing through the forest floor, and a low, resonant hum filled the clearing, vibrating in my chest. I realized then that it wasn't just a creature, it was the forest itself. This presence had been here for centuries, feeding on fear, manipulating reality, controlling every shadow, every whisper, every lost person. Emily's hand went cold in mine, and I felt her panic spike. I whispered her name, trying to anchor her, to anchor myself. "It's okay. Look at me. We're getting out. I promise." For a moment, the figure's glow intensified, and I could see multiple forms flicker inside it. Faces, people we had heard about in stories, all trapped within, echoing in silence. I understood then that it had been keeping the missing people alive in a suspended state, their consciousness stretched thin, feeding its existence. My stomach turned. Emily was alive because it had chosen to keep her. The figure shifted suddenly, moving faster than I thought possible. My instinct screamed, but I had to act. I stepped forward, pulling Emily with me, keeping my stance steady despite the fear racing through me. "We're leaving," I said more firmly this time. The glow flared, brighter, almost blinding, and for a moment, everything froze. Time itself seemed to hold its breath. Then the forest reacted violently. Branches whipped toward us, roots twisted at our feet, and the fog thickened like a living wall. I dodged, grabbed Emily, and pushed forward, forcing my way through. The figure advanced, and I could feel the air grow heavier, almost solid. But then I noticed something: small cracks in its form, flickers of the people trapped inside, reaching out toward me and Emily, trying to guide us. It wasn't invincible. It was powerful but not perfect. I focused, moving quickly, following the faint guidance of the trapped voices, including Emily's own consciousness echoing in my mind. Step by step, I led her closer to the edge of the clearing, toward a faint light breaking through the fog, daylight, just barely, a real world beyond this nightmare. The forest seemed to resist, pulling at us, slowing us down, but we kept moving. Every heartbeat, every breath was a battle, every shadow a potential trap. Finally we reached the edge. My foot hit solid ground beyond the clearing, and the figure recoiled slightly, a hiss of frustration rippling through the air. I grabbed Emily, pulling her fully into the light. The fog began to collapse behind us, retreating like a tide. The whispers faded, the shadows dissolved, and the glow disappeared, leaving the forest quiet, eerily quiet. I looked back. The figure was gone, or perhaps hidden, waiting for the next unwary soul. But for now we were safe. Emily collapsed into my arms, sobbing, and I held her tightly, letting her cry. "It's over," I whispered, though neither of us fully believed it. I could still feel the lingering weight of the forest pressing on us, a reminder that the danger wasn't gone, it had only retreated. But for now she was alive, and that was enough. We made our way back to the path, moving cautiously, still alert. The forest behind us was silent, almost peaceful, but the tension lingered. Emily finally spoke, her voice trembling. I saw them, the people, trapped inside," she swallowed, shivering. "They were screaming silently." I nodded, unable to speak, knowing what she meant. The forest had its secrets, its prisoners, and we had barely escaped with our lives. As we emerged into the road, the first hints of dawn breaking through the trees, I allowed myself a moment to breathe. But then I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Emily was looking at me strangely, her eyes wide, not with fear this time, but with something else. Something cold. I think it followed me," she whispered. I froze. I felt its presence inside me. Even when I was safe, I could feel it. And now I think I brought it with me. My heart skipped a beat. I glanced at her, the sunlight catching her face, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of that unnatural glow in her eyes, faint, almost imperceptible, but undeniably there. My stomach churned. The forest might have released her body, but part of whatever had been in that clearing had come back with us. The real danger wasn't over. I took a deep breath, gripping my flashlight still in my bag, and realized with a cold certainty, the forest had taught us something that night. It could be escaped, perhaps even defeated temporarily, but it would never be gone completely. And now it had a foothold in the world beyond the trees. Emily looked at me again, trembling. "We need to leave, far away." I nodded, but deep down I knew it wasn't enough. The forest shadows were patient, ancient, and relentless. And no matter where we went, a part of it was already with us. The sunrise painted the sky in soft orange and pink, a false sense of peace. I held Emily's hand tightly as we walked away from the forest, but in the back of my mind, I knew this was only the beginning. The story wasn't over. The forest had left its mark, and the darkness would always be waiting, just beyond the edge of the trees. And somewhere deep inside Emily, and maybe even inside me now, a part of that ancient, patient presence lingered, watching, waiting, and planning its next move. Equals 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 The sun had fully risen by the time we made it out of the forest. The mist that had clung to every branch and tree all night had lifted, leaving the woods looking calm, almost ordinary, as if nothing had happened. But I knew better. The forest had changed me. It had changed Emily. The echoes of whispers and the unnatural glow lingered in my mind, a memory too vivid to ignore. We walked in silence for a long stretch, the road ahead straight and familiar, yet somehow distant. Emily's hand stayed in mine, and I could feel her trembling lessen with every step, though I knew she carried a fear that would not fade quickly. "Do you think it's gone?" she asked quietly, glancing at me. I shook my head. "Not gone. Just waiting. Watching. But we're alive, and that's what matters right now." As we reached the edge of town, I noticed the familiar signs of daily life: cars on the road, people walking dogs, a coffee shop opening for the morning rush. The contrast was jarring. For hours, I had been in a place that defied reality, where time bent, shadows whispered, and fear had a shape. And now the world was ordinary again, almost painfully so. But even in the sunlight, I couldn't forget. Later, at the police station, I filed the report carefully, sticking to the facts I could prove. Emily had gone missing, the strange footprints, torn clothing, and the path we had followed out of the woods. The rest, the whispers, the illusions, the glowing figure, I left out. For now, the world wasn't ready for that truth. But I knew it was out there waiting. And I would remember every detail, because one day someone else might go missing, and I wanted to be ready. Emily and I sat in a small, quiet room afterward, just the two of us. She held a blanket around her shoulders, finally allowing herself to breathe without trembling. "I don't understand how you found me," she said softly. I thought I was gone." I shook my head. "You weren't alone, even if it felt like you were. You were smart, careful, and you didn't give up. That's why we got out. We survived because we didn't stop fighting." We spent hours talking, piecing together what she remembered, what she saw. Her recollections were fragmented, glowing shapes, distorted voices, shadows that shouldn't exist. But every detail lined up with what I had experienced. The forest wasn't chaotic. It had a pattern, a purpose, and a way of testing whoever entered it. It wasn't just about fear, it was about control, observation, and the patience of something ancient. As the day wore on, Emily began to regain some of her composure, though the fear was still there, lurking beneath her words. "Do you think anyone else got out?" she asked. I sighed. "I don't know. Some might have. Some might still be in there waiting. But for now we're alive. That's the truth we hold on to." That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept returning to the forest, to the glowing figure, to the faint shimmer I had seen in Emily's eyes. The fear had been tempered with relief, but a small, nagging worry remained. Whatever had been in those woods was patient, and it had a reach that didn't end at the forest line. The faint memory of whispers, echoing in the fog, was a reminder that some dangers are never fully defeated. I checked on Emily before heading home, and she was asleep, exhausted but alive. I stood by the window for a while, staring at the dark outline of the distant woods. The sunrise had turned to dusk, and the shadows seemed longer now, stretching like tendrils. I couldn't see the glow anymore, but I knew it was there, somewhere, waiting, biding its time. In the following days, life slowly returned to normal, or as normal as it could be after a night like that. I returned to my routine at the station, patrolling and investigating mundane cases, but the memory of the forest and Emily's near disappearance stayed with me. Every missing person report carried a new weight, every strange sound in the woods made me tense. I was changed. Emily was changed. And the small town would never know just how close it had come to losing her completely. Emily began recovering, slowly reclaiming her confidence, her sense of safety, though she was never the same. She stayed close to me for a while, sharing small details, recounting nightmares, and expressing fears that I quietly understood but could never fully fix. We both knew some things weren't meant to be explained, only remembered and respected. And then, weeks later, something unexpected happened. Emily noticed a faint shimmer in the corner of the room one evening, a pale, flickering glow that disappeared when she blinked. She didn't speak of it at first, but I saw her glance at it, her hand instinctively reaching out. I realized then that part of the forest, part of that ancient presence, hadn't left entirely. It had followed her, subtly, silently, a reminder that the darkness isn't easily forgotten. I placed my hand over hers, holding it firmly. "We survived," I said. "And we'll survive whatever comes next. But we have to be ready." She nodded, understanding that some battles are never fully over. The forest had tested us, and though we had escaped, its presence remained, a quiet shadow in our lives. In the end, we had answers to some questions, but the deeper mysteries, the missing people, the ancient power in the forest, the patience of shadows, remained. We had survived because we fought, because we stayed aware, because we refused to give up. And that was the lesson we carried forward. Courage, awareness, and the knowledge that some forces, no matter how frightening, could be faced and endured. The forest was behind us, at least for now, but its memory lingered in every rustle of leaves, in every shadow at the edge of sight. We had survived, but we had learned that survival sometimes meant carrying fear, respecting danger, and never underestimating the patience of the unknown. As Emily and I walked home, the town glowing softly in the evening light, I felt a strange mixture of relief and unease. We were alive, the story had an ending, but the forest, the shadows, the whispers, they would never truly let go. And somewhere, deep in the fog that now only existed in memory, something waited, patient, eternal, and watching. The night had ended, but the story, the lesson, the danger, the mystery, would always remain.